Hi, welcome back. In the last presentation, I talked about about Scrum as well as some terminology that you use in Scrum. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to talk about various ceremonies or various events that happens in Scrum. So let's get into them. Scrum ceremonies. The first ceremony is sprint planning. This is a planning meeting for the complete time box sprint that composes of all activities including coding, testing, documentation, packaging and delivery. Now what happens is that every sprint, I think we define what sprint is. Sprint is nothing but a time frame from 1 to 4, anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. Let's say for example a team chooses a sprint of 2 weeks. Now for every 2 weeks what happens is in the beginning of this, in the first day of the sprint, a meeting happens. In that meeting, the team members, the dev team members, along with the product owner, and they discuss about what needs to be done in the coming in this sprint, and what are the things that needs to be delivered. Now that delivery includes, as discussed, as you've been discussing, not just coding and testing. It also increment any documentation required, any packaging required, any delivery module required. All these things will be discussed in the sprint plan meeting. Let's see what are the other things we discuss. Scrum Master facilitates this meeting, and product owner is the most important stakeholder for this meeting and provides goals for the sprint and prioritizes work for the sprint. Product owner, I told you, like, is a man. It could be a manager. He, along with the Scrum Master. Scrum Master is a person who makes sure that Scrum is going well. He's not, he's a servant leader guy. Whereas product owner, he is the one who talks to the product manager and gets the requirements for the team to work on, right? So the product owner, gives the, says for this sprint, these are the 5 stories that needs to be done. In this, and this is the documentation needs to be done. Like that, he give all the goals for the sprint to be done. Second thing is, team and product owner negotiate on the scope of the sprint based on the team capacity, work clarity and complexity. Sometimes after seeing the stories, team members, they will detail, in detail they will see all the stories. Some team members say, yeah, the story actually lacks some information. We are not clear about that. They might ask. If the product owner is able to provide the information, great, then it can be accepted. Whereas sometimes that doesn't contain, the product owner is not able to provide the information they are looking for, then product owner, the story may not be taken up, it will be taken back to the sprint backlog. So that's what the negotiation between team and also sometimes team says 1 or 2 team members are, this member is going on vacation. So last sprint we delivered 8 stories, but this sprint we can deliver only 5 stories. That's kind of negotiation that happened between team and the product owner. Product owner is the owner of the product as far as the technical perspective is concerned. Next thing is, team should come out of the meeting with a very clear picture of the goals for the sprint. So sprint, after the sprint planning meeting, which actually lasts for 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours also, team should have clear understanding of all the story that needs to be done, how they should be, what is required, how they should done, who is, everything about those stories should be clear to the team members. At least they shouldn't have any doubts. Maybe sometimes while working they might get more doubts, but at least at that point they should not have any doubts. That's what one of the things. Sprint backlog comes out of the sprint planning meeting. Sometimes, a backlog could come out of the sprint planning meeting. Sprint backlog is the amount of work that team agreed on working in a sprint. So that's pretty much what the sprint backlog. I think I already told you about that. Any work that comes in the middle of the sprint should be prioritized to the product owner for the next sprint. As I told you, there are 8 stories, put into the sprint backlog, which is nothing but the list of items that needs to be worked by the team in that sprint. If team says, because somebody is going on vacation, we can't work on 8 stories, we can work on only 5 stories, then product owner should say, okay, out of these 8 stories, work on these first 5 stories. So ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You should give a priority list of things to them. For the team member to work. Priority should be there. Normally, these meetings could last up to from anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. And for every this meeting happens for every 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, depending upon the sprint duration. Normally, many agile teams take 2 week sprint. That's the reason I think I put it as 2 weeks. But it could be like anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. And the meeting also, like I put 3 to 4 hours, but normally it could be from 2 to 4 hours. It could be anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. Less than 2, I normally, at least minimum it will take 2 hours. Otherwise it could take even to 4 hours. If it is taking beyond 4 hours, that means there are stories that are being taken that can be done more than that cannot be done in this sprint system. So they should try to see to eliminate some of the stories to product backlog. Yeah, this is the first ceremony. Sprint planning is the first ceremony. Now, second ceremony, the sprint planning happens for every sprint duration, which could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. In the beginning of the first day of the sprint. Daily stand-up every day in the sprint. That means, let's say the sprint is for 2 weeks, which is like 14 days, right? So there should be a meeting that happens between team members, which is called the daily stand-up. This is a quick 15 minutes face-to-face stand-up meeting. It's not a big meeting. It's like 15 minutes meeting to inspect and adapt. We talked about inspect and adapt in the Scrum when you talk about Scrum, right? So in this meeting, everybody will talk about their status. It's kind of a status meeting, but not exactly status. It's about 3 things which I'm going to talk about. This is not a project status meeting to know the progress of the project. These meetings happen at the same time, at the same place daily, and Scrum Master is responsible for facilitating it. These meetings and the entire team is responsible for having these meetings. Product owner and stakeholders are allowed for this meeting, but they are not allowed to interrupt them. Scrum Master was responsible for smooth running of this meeting. So basically, every day, Scrum Master, if there is no Scrum Master, product owner should be there. Scrum Master should facilitate this meeting. They are, along with the dev team members, the Scrum Master should stand at a place which is accessible to everybody. They just stand and each of the team members will talk about it. Product owner and product manager, if he is available, are allowed for this meeting, but they should not be talking they should not give in their opinions, or they should not change anything in there, because in the sprint planning meeting itself, it is agreed that they are going to do work on 5 stories or 8 stories or 10 stories. Once it is agreed, product owner should back off, product manager should back off, and Scrum Master should come into the picture. So Scrum Master lead the Scrum team, whereas product owner lead the sprint initial meeting, which is sprint planning. Now, every team member in this sprint stand-up, daily stand-up, is expected to answer 3 questions. What is done yesterday to achieve the story that he is working on? A sprint goal, whatever it is. What is planned for today to achieve sprint goals? Are there any impediments for the sprint goals? 3 things. What I did yesterday, what I am planning today, are there any bottlenecks or blockers, impediments? They are the same thing, right? So similar meaning. So only these things they will talk about. And again, it is a 15 minutes meeting, and we discussed like there should be like 3 to 9 team members. So if a minimum, let's say if a maximum 9 members are there, each member should not take more than 1.5 minutes, right? So 9, should not take 1.5 minutes. So it should not be a lengthy meeting. It should not be a lengthy conversation. It's brief, but to the point. That's what the daily stand-up is. It happens at the same time, at the same place, convened by the product Scrum Master. Now, the next one is backlog grooming, which is also called a refinement meeting. This is the meeting happens normally in the middle of the sprint, aimed at preparing for the next sprint. Sprint is going on, but there is the next sprint, right? So after 2 weeks, let's say there's a 2-week sprint, another sprint is. So what needs to be worked on? That will be They, again, what needs to be worked on will be done in the sprint planning meeting. But the preparation of the stories, okay, if just go through the list of stories that are available in the in the product backlog, what to pick, how they are looking like, are there any changes, the inputs required. So team has to have an understanding, right? So they have to groom, they have to make the stories better for the next sprint. That process happens in the middle of the sprint, which is called the backlog meeting. Team and product owner could take this as an opportunity to refine and add more details to the work items. So, like I said, they go through all the stories prioritized that can be that are tentatively planned for the next sprint, and see if the stories are completely, are they are they following definition of ready, is the acceptance criteria is good, are there enough details, is it clear to the team members. All these things will be discussed per each story, each user story. When I say story, it means user story. Normally this meeting duration would be around 2 to 3 hours for every 2 week sprint. Again, this is also a 2 hours meeting, and the product owner should be there in this meeting. Scrum master may not be there because it is not a scrum activity, may or may not be there, but it should be team members as well as the product owner there, because product owner talks to the product manager and get the product details, so he has the knowledge of the product, right? So this is how it happens. Now, another is sprint review. This is the meeting that happens at the last day of the sprint to go through the list of items worked on or not worked on in the sprint by the team, and get the finished stories demoed and validate them against the sprint goals. Even if there is nothing concrete to demo, it is always good to have this meeting. Now, sprint review is at the last day of the sprint. This is to showcase their work. Sometimes they call this as show and tell. This sprint review is also sometimes called as show and tell. I'll talk about who are invited to this, but this is where actually team members show, okay, for this sprint goal, I did this story 1, 2, 3, like that they will say, and they will demo their pieces of their work to the stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders? Product owner, the team, scrum master, all these guys attend this meeting. So product owner has to be there, and sometimes product manager also could be attending this meeting, which is optional, but product owner has to be there because he is responsible for deliveries, right, to the product manager. Ideally, customer also should present in this meeting. Customer means for the development team, the customer is product manager. For product manager, the team is real customers who buy the software. Right, so that's how the customer is. Team also looks at product backlog to understand if there are any new items added to the backlog for the sprint that changes the priority of existing product backlog. Yeah, I mean, they discuss about the priorities. Are there any changes in the priorities? Sometimes there are changes in the priorities. They discuss and they'll try to do accordingly. So they discuss about this. Normally this meeting duration would be around again 2 to 3 hours for every 2 week sprints. So this is called the sprint review. Once sprint review is done, on the same day, there is going to be another meeting called sprint retrospective. This is a meeting that goes through what went well in the sprint and what did not go well, and what could have been improved. So this is a meeting between product owner, team, and scrum master only. There are no product managers or customers should be available in that meeting, because this is an internal meeting, not exposed for everybody. So in this meeting, team members tell their problems. Okay, because of this guy is not available, did not help me, I had these challenges. Those kinds of things. Any people aspects or the process act, I did not get the license on time, that's the reason I'm not able to deliver. Any problems, this took long time, I didn't get, any problems that happened, they will discuss. Or anything they did good, they will discuss. That's called retrospective, means like think about what happened in the past, right? Retrospective means think about what happened in the past. So the past in the means not too much past, in the sprint, in the last 2 weeks, what happened, they discuss and they will talk about it. Any good things, any things that needs to be improved, all those things will be improved. Again, this is an internal meeting for the team, development team. So only product owner, scrum master, and team should be there. No customers or product manager should be available in this meeting. Once this meeting is over, team comes, okay, these are the ABCD are the challenges faced. How we solve these problems in the next meeting. That's how they discussed. Again, this normally will be 1 to 2 hours duration for every sprint. So basically, So basically, we talked about 4 meetings. These meetings are also nothing but the ceremonies. So sprint planning, which happens on the first day of the sprint beginning. Daily stand up, which happens entire sprint, like all the 10 days, because 7 days in a week, but Saturday, Sunday holiday. So 5 days plus 5 days, 10 days. Work is 10 working days. So all 5 days this daily stand up happens. Then backlog grooming happens in the middle of the sprint. On the again, is it Monday that happens or Wednesday? It depends upon the team they choose. And then sprint review happens. Review happens. This review happens on the last day of the sprint. Retrospective also happens in the last day of the sprint, mostly, or maybe the first day of the sprint. Depends upon the availability of the team members and other things. So these are the sprint ceremonies. So thank you very much. Meet you in the next presentation.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe VNR Digital Learning Resource YouTube channel.